Hey everyone, TJ Hernandez here, and I'm the founder of RosterCoach.com, a classroom-style video-based website that's designed to help you improve your daily fantasy sports game. Today's preview is from a course on how to use Vegas lines in NFL DFS and explains how to use those lines to find quarterbacks to use in daily fantasy. If you enjoy what you see, please like and share this video, and don't forget to leave a comment below.
The main thing that I want to focus on is this table that Rich used, where he plotted every single quarterback in the NFL, and he used a few backups as well, computing their scoring averages in games that they won, games that they lost, and using some other differentials based on point spread. The first thing that you should note is that quarterbacks score a lot more points in wins than in losses. Rich actually goes on to say in the piece that not a single quarterback was better on average in losses than in wins. You can see in the table that quarterbacks in this study averaged 20.7 points per game in wins and just 15.5 points per game in losses. That's a pretty significant difference, and I think that that is something that we want to use to our advantage when we're selecting our DFS quarterbacks, particularly in cash games. Furthermore, we can see that quarterbacks are scoring less points the more that they lose by in any given game. This goes against the idea in fantasy that we should be seeking out quarterbacks who will play in garbage time. While garbage time probably does allow for more pass attempts for quarterbacks, it does not seem, based on the data, that those attempts are producing more fantasy points for fantasy players. And you'll also note that when the splits are done by point spread and not by final margin of victory or loss, that the underdog is scoring a little bit more, but still lower than the overall average of the sample. I think that we can probably attribute this to underdogs in certain cases actually being the winners of football games, and definitely identifying underdogs who have the possibility to win games is going to be a situation where you can find some quality GPP plays. Overall, though, I think our biggest takeaway here is that we want quarterbacks who are going to be playing for a winning team. The second thing that I think we want to focus on is quarterbacks playing in high total games. This is somewhat intuitive, obviously. I think that we know that games that we expect to score more points are going to therefore have to have more points from their quarterbacks, but I wanted to actually come up with the data to back this up. Fortunately, at fantasylabs.com, they have an awesome trends tool that lets you separate quarterback performances by point spread and point total. So that's exactly what I did. Over here on the left, you'll note that I used about 4-point ranges in total, and I plotted the average DK points scored by quarterbacks playing in those total games. I also recorded the number of quarterbacks in each sample just so that you could see how frequent each situation is occurring. What you should notice is that there is a fairly steady increase in fantasy scoring for quarterbacks depending on the total of the game in which they are playing. Now, it's really important that you also realize that I'm not using any other factors in this, so I'm not even separating by favorites. I'm not separating this in terms of quarterbacks who have won the game. This is just straight up quarterbacks involved in games of these totals. And remember, these are just predicted totals. So these are not the totals after the fact. In other words, when I say that the max total is 56 points, I'm not saying that the game itself actually finished with 56 points, but that the Vegas total on the game was 56 points. That's a pretty important distinction because we want to make sure that the analysis that we're doing is predictive and not something that's just descriptive. That's an important distinction that I think we'll make throughout this series. So you can see that when the total is between 36.5 and 40, the DK average scoring for quarterbacks in those games is about 13.59, jumps up to 14.47 if we raise the total a little bit, and it's in that 15-point range from a 44.5 total all the way up to a 52-point total. Where we really see the biggest difference is once that total gets over 52, 52.5 to 56 total games have a huge increase in scoring, 18.44 points per game. So ideally, we're going to want to target quarterbacks that are in these kinds of games. Those games aren't going to happen every week. 52.5 points is a rather high total. But when they do happen, we really need to isolate those games and focus on them in terms of the quarterbacks that we're going to select for fantasy.